Arthur Coleman Danto. January 1, 1924 – October 25, 2013. Was an American art critic and philosopher. He is best known for having been influential longtime art critic for The Nation and for his work in philosophical aesthetics and philosophy of history, though he contributed significantly to a number of fields, including the philosophy of action. His interests included thought, feeling, philosophy of art, theories of representation, philosophical psychology, Hegel's aesthetics, and the philosophers Friedrich Nietzsche and Arthur Schopenhauer. Background and education. Danto was born in Ann Arbor, Michigan, January 1, 1924, and grew up in Detroit. After spending 2 years in the Army, Danto studied art and history at Wayne University, now Wayne State University, and then pursued graduate study in philosophy at Columbia University. From 1949 to 1950, Danto studied in Paris on a Fulbright scholarship under Jean Wahl, and in 1951 returned to teach at Columbia. In 1992 he was named Johnsonian Professor Emeritus of Philosophy. Thought. Arthur Danto argues that a problem is not a philosophical problem unless it is possible to imagine that its solution will consist in showing how appearance has been taken for reality, while science deals with empirical problems. Philosophy, according to Danto, examines indiscernible differences that lie outside of experience. Danto believes that persons are essentially systems of representation. Quote, "Art world, and the definition of art." Danto laid the groundwork for an institutional definition of art that sought to answer the questions raised by the emerging phenomenon of 20th-century art. The definition of the term art is a subject of constant contention, and many books and journal articles have been published arguing over the answer to the question, what is art? Definitions can be categorized into conventional and non-conventional definitions. Non-conventional definitions take a concept like the aesthetic as an intrinsic characteristic in order to account for the phenomena of art. Conventional definitions reject this connection to aesthetic, formal, or expressive properties as essential to defining art, but rather, in either an institutional or historical sense, say that art is basically a sociological category. In terms of classificatory disputes about art, Danto takes a conventional approach. His institutional definition of art considers whatever art schools, museums, and artists get away with, regardless of formal definitions. Danto has written on this subject in several of his recent works, and a detailed treatment is to be found in Transfiguration of the Commonplace. The essay, The Art World, in which Danto coined the term art world, by which he meant cultural context or an atmosphere of art theory, first appeared in the Journal of Philosophy, 1964, and has since been widely reprinted. It has had considerable influence on aesthetic philosophy and, according to Professor of Philosophy Stephen David Ross, especially upon George Dickey's institutional theory of art. Dickey defines an artwork as an artifact which has had conferred upon it the status of candidate for appreciation by some person or persons acting in behalf of a certain social institution. The Art World. Single quote. p. 43. Quote. According to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, Danto's definition has been glossed as follows. Something is a work of art if and only if I. It has a subject, e, about which it projects some attitude or point of view, has a style, e, by means of rhetorical ellipsis, usually metaphorical, which ellipsis engages audience participation in filling in what is missing, and iv, where the work in question and the interpretations thereof require an art historical context. Danto. Carroll. Clause. IV. Is what makes the definition institutionalist. The view has been criticized for entailing that art criticism written in a highly rhetorical style is art, lacking but requiring an independent account of what makes a context art historical, and for not applying to music. Quote, "The end of art." The basic meaning of the term art has changed several times over the centuries, and has continued to evolve during the 20th century as well. Danto describes the history of art in his own contemporary version of Hegel's dialectical history of art. Danto is not claiming that no one is making art anymore, nor is he claiming that no good art is being made anymore. But he thinks that a certain history of Western art has come to an end, in about the way that Hegel suggested it would. The end of art refers to the beginning of our modern era of art, in which art no longer adheres to the constraints of imitation theory but serves a new purpose. Art began with an era of imitation, followed by an era of ideology, followed by our post-historical era in which, with qualification, anything goes. In our narrative, at first only mimesis, imitation, was art. Then several things were art, but each tried to extinguish its competitors. And then, finally, it became apparent that there were no stylistic or philosophical constraints. There is no special way works of art have to be. And that is the present and, I should say, the final moment in the master narrative. It is the end of the story. Quote, art criticism. Arthur Danto was an art critic for The Nation from 1984 to 2009, and also published numerous articles in other journals. In addition, he was an editor of the Journal of Philosophy and a contributing editor of the Naked Punch Review and Art Forum. In art criticism, he published several collected essays, including Encounters and Reflections, Art in the Historical Present, for R. Strauss and Giroux, 1990, which won the National Book Critics Circle Prize for Criticism in 1990. Beyond the Brillo Box, The Visual Arts in Post-Historical Perspective, for R. Strauss and Giroux, 1992, Playing with the Edge, The Photographic Achievement of Robert Mapplethorpe, University of California, 1995, and The Madonna of the Future, Essays in a Pluralistic Art World, for R. Strauss and Giroux, 2000, and Unnatural Wonders, Essays from the Gap Between Art and Life. In 1996, he received the Frank Jewett Mather Award for Art Criticism from the College Art Association. He was one of the signers of the Humanists Manifesto. Death. Arthur Danto died on October 25, 2013, aged 89 in Manhattan, New York City. Works. Books. Danto is the author of numerous books on philosophy and art, and summarizing the works of continental philosophers in Anglo-American terms. Arthur Danto's published works include Nietzsche as Philosopher, 1965, Analytical Philosophy of History, 1965, What Philosophy Is, 1968, Analytical Philosophy of Knowledge, 1968, Mysticism and Morality, Oriental Thought and Moral Philosophy, 1969, Analytical Philosophy of Action, 1973, Sartre, Fontana Modern Masters, 1975, The Transfiguration of the Commonplace, 1981, Narration and Knowledge, 1985, including earlier book Analytical Philosophy of History, 1965, The Philosophical Disenfranchisement of Art, 1986, Connections to the World, The Basic Concepts of Philosophy, 1989, with new preface, 1997, Encounters and Reflections, Art in the Historical Present, 1990, Beyond the Brillo Box, The Visual Arts in Post-Historical Perspective, 1992, Embodied Meanings, Critical Essays and Aesthetic Meditations, 1994, After the End of Art, 1997, The Abuse of Beauty, 2003. Red Grooms, 2004. Andy Warhol, 2009. What Art Is, 2013. Essays. The Art World, 1964. Journal of Philosophy LXI, 571-584. The State of the Art, 1987. Encounters and Reflections. Art in the Historical Present, 1990. Playing with the Edge. The Photographic Achievement of Robert Mapplethorpe, 1995. The Wake of Art. Criticism, Philosophy, and the Ends of Taste, 1998. Hegel's End of Art Thesis, 1999. Philosophizing Art. Selected Essays, 1999. The Madonna of the Future. Essays in a Pluralistic Art World, 2000. The Body Problem. Selected Essays, 2001. The Poetry of Meaning and Loss. The Glass Dresses of Karen Lamonti, 2005. Karen Lamonti, Peter Fischley, David Weiss. A Survey of Their Oeuvre, with Danto collaborating, 2005. Unnatural Wonders. Essays from the Gap Between Art and Life, 2007. Architectural Principles in the Art of Sean Scully, 2007. Notes. Further reading. Action. Art. History. Engagements with Arthur C. Danto. A collection of essays edited by Daniel Hurwitz and Michael Kelly, including contributions by Frank Ankasmit, Hans Belting, Stanley Cavell, Donald Davidson, Lydia Goer, Greg Horowitz, Philip Kitcher, Daniel Amoa, Daniel Hurwitz and Michael Kelly, and replies by Danto himself. Danto and His Critics, 1993. A collection of essays including contributions by David Carrier, Richard Wollheim, Jerry Fedor, and George Dickey. Danto and His Critics. Art History, Historiography and After the End of Art. An issue of History and Theory journal where philosophers David Carrier, Frank Ankasmit, Noel Carroll, Michael Kelly, Bridget Hilmer, Robert Kudielka, Martin Seelan and Jacob Steinbrenner address his work. Includes a final reply by the author, Tiziana Andina. Arthur Danto, Philosopher of Pop. Cambridge Scholars Publishing, 2011. D. Seipel, Arthur C. Danto. In Philip B. DeMatteis. ed. Dictionary of Literary Biography 273. 2003. 39-48. D. Seipel. Creativity and Spirit in the Work of Arthur Danto. At Academia. Edu. David Seipel. The Spirit of Arthur Danto. In Randall E. Auxia and Lewis Edwin Hahn. ed. The Philosophy of Arthur C. Danto. The Library of Living Philosophers 33. 671-700. 2013. ISBN 978-0812697322. Is it Art? An interview with Alan Saunders of ABC Radio National. 03, 2006. Biography Arthur C. Danto's biography on Columbia University website. Danto on Art, The Partially Examined Life, Episode 16. Podcast by interpreters without Danto participating.